Hey everybody, mel0n here. Welcome back to another episode of the mel0n Review. Today's going to be a very special episode of the mel0n Review as I have a first look at a brand new product from my favorite Canadians over at SoSpacer. Today we are going to be taking a look at their brand new SoSpacer Shape Shift Grips. Now I've actually known about the Shape Shift project for a couple months now. I knew about it early in January, and the moment I saw it I was super intrigued about it because this seems like a really cool concept, and if it was executed properly could be a really cool tool to help make mice feel a little better for your grip styles. Of course the tech here isn't brand new. There are other companies who are doing something similar. However, we haven't seen an implementation like this with the Shape Shift grips. Now, for those of you watching the channel for a little while, you may remember the name SoSpacer from when I covered their grips a little while ago. Those were like one of my favorite grips out there on the market, and they still are to this day. They're a really cool little piece of tech, and the Shape Shifts are basically just like a bigger version of the SoSpacer grips, just executed a little differently. Now, today's video is going to be unboxing and first impressions of these Shape Shifts. I will have a much more in-depth review of the Shape Shift grips in a couple weeks once I have time to do some more testing. I want to do some individual testing on a bunch of different mice with different grip styles and that kind of stuff to see how these actually function. So I will have a much more in-depth review of these coming in a couple weeks. So if you guys want to see a perspective of these Shape Shift grips over a little bit more long-term use, be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss that. Now, before we get into it, as always, this video will be fully subtitled and timestamps will be available down in the video description. And a big thank you to SoSpacer, who has kind of sent out these Shape Shifts for me to take a look at. I greatly appreciate it. All right, but let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's talk about the pricing for the Shape Shifts, what's included in the box, and how these work. All right, now in terms of pricing, these Shape Shift grips retail for around 26 Canadian dollars, which is around $20 USD if my conversion is correct. Each set comes with 6 of the Shape Shift grips, so that's 1 of each kind. As of right now, there isn't a way to buy like individual ones or multiple of one kind, which would be maybe something that you could look into in the future, but for now it's just preset kits of 6. Now in terms of colorways, they are available in white, black, and red right now. I would like to see maybe in the future SoSpacer have the different colorways, like we had the pink and the cyan and the purple for these original SoSpacer grips. It'd be nice in the future to see maybe different color options for the Shape Shift grips, but we'll have to see what happens down the line. Now in terms of the unboxing, the Shape Shifts come in this really nicely designed cardboard box. I love the look of this. It looks really cool. So from a design standpoint, they look fantastic. Inside the box we have an included set of 2 alcohol wipes, and then we also have this little sheet of paper here. Now this is actually a sheet of extra adhesive for the Shape Shift grips, which is a really nice attention to detail. The Shape Shifts do have adhesive on the bottom, so technically speaking you're getting 2 sets of adhesive out of the box, which is a great attention to detail. This does fix one of the shortfalls that was on the original SoSpacer grips, where eventually after usage they would eventually slip off of the 3M adhesive on the bottom of them, and there was no extra adhesive included with the packaging. It was just stuck to the bottom of the SoSpacers, which again was completely fine, but over like long-term use, like a year or so, they did get a little slippery. So this is designed to fix that, where you have extra adhesive sheets, so if over usage your Shape Shift does get slippery or start to slide, you can replace the adhesive, which is a really nice attention to detail. Now if I'm not mistaken, SoSpacer will be selling extra sheets of adhesive on their website down the line. I don't know when that'll be happening, and I will confirm that for the full review of course, but if you do need an extra set of adhesive aside from the 2 that come with the box, you can always purchase more, which is a really nice thing to see. And then lastly, of course, we have these Shape Shifts themselves. Now I'm not going to go into too much depth of the individual usage of the Shape Shifts here right now, just because I haven't done full testing on them. For the full review I will do a lot more of an in-depth review on them. I'm just going to do a quick little kind of summary of them right now. Now basically the first 2 ones you'll see here is the TN1 and the TA1. Now these are designed as thumb grips, and these are designed to kind of fill in the gap or provide an anchoring point to your thumb on the left side of the mouse. Next up we also have the P1, the P2, the N1, and the aggro. Now these are designed to go on the right side of the mouse and fill in the kind of gap area between your pinky and your ring finger and the side of the mouse. Now of course, aside from these making the mouse more comfortable for you to grip, they also have a lot of impacts in terms of your aiming, because it helps you keep your ring finger, your thumb, and your pinky finger positioning very well anchored, which helps the overall usability of the mouse. Now my kind of idea with how I want to test these is I want to test these on mice that I really like the idea of, but I haven't been able to use them because the shape is kind of awkward. The Zowie U2 comes to mind first because that was a cool mouse, but the shape was just really bad. I'm wondering if the Shape Shift can actually quote unquote fix the shape. So I'll have to do some testing on how well these work and how much I can actually do for the full review of course. Now in my situation, I've already installed these on 3 of my mice, so I have put the aggro one on my Endgame Gear OP1AK. That is one I'm using this one on currently right now, because the aggro is supposedly supposed to be the best one, or at least that's the favorite one from the guys over at SoSpacer, and that's the one I really wanted to focus on. And I'm using it primarily as a ring finger or a pinky grip. Again, I could be putting it much farther back to kind of fill in the gap, but I like the anchor idea a little more, so I'm using it like that. Now for the second mouse, I'm using the N1 and the TA1 on my Sprime PM1 here. Now the Sprime PM1 is one of my favorite mice that released this year so far. The only problem with it is that the shape is just a little bit too small for my hands. I can get away with an aggro claw, but it's not the most comfortable. But by using the N1 and the TA1, I can actually widen this mouse quite a bit to make it a lot more comfortable for my hands. So I'm going to be testing that one on here on the Sprime PM1. And then lastly, we have my Pulsar X2, which is another mouse I really like, which is the side profile doesn't quite work for my grip style. So I'm trying to fix that by using the P2 for my thumb and pinky finger, and I'm using the TN1 for my thumb grip. Now, across the board with all these, again, the design of the SoSpacers is to make the mouse more comfortable for you and kind of increase your gripability of the mouse. And then we're going to test how well that works. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple runs of Kovacs, do some early first impressions to see how these feel, and then I'll be back for some final thoughts. Alrighty, so I did a couple runs on Kovacs just to kind of give a rough first impressions of these ones, and I must say I'm actually really impressed. When I covered the original SoSpacer grips, my favorite thing about those grips is that they kind of gave you this like locked in feeling where your grip was really consistent and it just had a very natural feel to it, and that's why I love those so much, because they increase the gripability of your mouse so much so it just gave you that very locked in feeling, if that makes sense. These shape shifts do the exact same thing but to a much higher extent, if that makes sense, where they're also giving you this really locked in feeling of holding your mouse, but they're also physically changing the shape of the mouse to fit your hands better, which is again a really weird feeling. It does take a little while to get used to it. Like I definitely have this kind of odd feeling in my hands when I'm using them just because it's not natural, if that makes sense. I'm not accustomed to them yet, but I find that I'm able to have a much more like locked in and comfortable, consistent feeling with the shape shifts than I am with like grip tape or something like that. It's a really cool feeling. Again, there's a lot to test here in terms of different positioning and different grip sizes, different grip styles, how this is going to affect your aim. Is it going to make your aim better? Is it going to make your aim worse? There's a lot to cover, but based off of just my rough first impressions, these do feel really cool and they do make the mouse feel better. I just don't know how they're going to affect everything else, but I'll talk about that more in the full review. But that's going to be pretty much everything for my quick unboxing and first impressions here of the SoSpacer Shape Shift Grips. These are genuinely one of the coolest pieces of tech I've seen in a very long time, and I'm very excited to see how these hold out over testing. As I mentioned before at the top of the video, I will have a much more in-depth review of the SoSpacer Shape Shifts in a couple weeks once I have time to do some more testing. As I mentioned before, I will be doing a bunch of individual testing on each of the shape shifts themselves with different grip styles and that kind of stuff. So if you want to see a much more long-term look at the shape shifts, be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss that video coming very soon. Thank you very much again to SoSpacer for sending these out for review. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the full review of the SoSpacer Shape Shifts coming out in a couple weeks. Until then, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.